Hey everyone, Israel is currently in a war against the terror organization Hamas, and we know how hard it can be to keep up with all the news. So if you haven't had the time to stay on top of the latest developments out of Israel, we're here for you. I'm Ladar Gavelazi, and this is ILTV's Weekly Review. An elite Yamam counterterrorism officer, Arnon Zamora, aged 36, was honored today after succumbing to wounds sustained during yesterday's daring hostage rescue in Gaza. The operation, which successfully freed 4 Israeli hostages, saw intense combat. ILTV's editor-in-chief Mayan Hoffman has the full story.
An elite Yamam counterterrorism officer, Arnon Zamora, 36, was laid to rest today after being critically wounded in a hostage rescue operation in the central Gaza Strip, which brought 4 Israeli hostages back home. Zamora is survived by his wife and 2 children. A major gun battle erupted Saturday during the extraction of Noah Argamani, 26, Almog Meirjan, 21, Andrei Koslov, 27, and Shlomi Ziv, 41, from the Gaza Strip. Zamora's vehicle came under fire. Forces quickly reached the scene to rescue him and the hostages, bringing them to a makeshift helipad in Gaza. Zamora was evacuated to a hospital in Israel in critical condition and succumbed to his wounds a short while later. The name of the hostage rescue operation was named Operation Arnon in his memory. On Saturday morning, the Israel Defense Forces, Shin Bet Security Agency, and Israel Police executed a high-risk operation, rescuing 4 hostages from Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The mission took place in broad daylight in an area where Israeli forces had not previously operated. The IDF had planned the operations for weeks, it said. At 11 a.m., Yamam and Shin Bet officers were ordered to raid 2 buildings in Nuseirat, where the hostages were held. The buildings were 200 meters apart, and the simultaneous raids aimed to prevent Hamas from killing the hostages once the rescue began, Israeli media reported. Argamani was held alone by Hamas guards in a Palestinian family's home, while the other 3 hostages were held in a different house, also with guards. Argamani's rescue was relatively smooth, the IDF said, but a gun battle occurred at the second location, where Meirjan, Koslov, and Ziv were being held. Hamas's media office reported that at least 210 people were killed during the operation. The IDF admitted to civilian casualties, but blamed Hamas for using hostages and fighting in densely populated areas. We know of about 100 Palestinian casualties. I don't know how many of them are terrorists, said IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari in a briefing, as reported by Reuters. This was the 3rd successful operation in 246 days since the Hamas-led attack on October 7th. World leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron, praised the IDF's rescue operation. However, others condemned Israel for the high civilian casualties on the Palestinian side. European Union Foreign Minister Joseph Borrell called it, quote, another massacre of civilians, and demanded an end to the violence. Norway's Deputy Foreign Minister also strongly criticized Israel and called for a ceasefire. Egypt, too, condemned the attacks, citing violations of international law. Even as Israel celebrates the rescue of these hostages, Hamas still holds 116 of our people in its captivity.
And we are now going to turn to Eyal Calderon, the cousin of hostage Ofer Calderon, who was kidnapped by Hamas to Gaza, along with his children Sahar and Erez, both of whom were released during the November exchange. Ofer remains in Gaza. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
So what was it like for you watching the hostages return home this time, to know that the IDF managed to rescue them?
So it was a wide range of emotions yesterday that we felt, every family of the hostages' families. We were very joyful to see Shlomi, Andrei, Noah, and Almog. I just the last Saturday stood on the stage in the Kikar Hatufim in Tel Aviv with Orit, Almog's mother, and we just asked each other when will be the moment that they will get to us. And this moment was was a great moment reached, and I'm very happy for her and for all the others. They are like my brothers. And we are very, very hopeful that it will be the start of the release of all other hostages.
And do you have any information about your cousin? I mean, what is the last update that you've received?
Almost 200 since the 55 day when the last hostages were released. This is the last live hit that we got, and since then nothing.
Eyal, this is Mayana. Can I ask you a question? Are you angry at the country with that being the last update at the Prime Minister? Are you worried that the rescue might put the ceasefire hostage deal at further risk and that this will never come to fruition?
So I want to talk about it. It was heroic operation, no doubt. But we must understand, I hope that everybody understands, that that cannot be the same thing with all the other 120 hostages. There won't be these heroic operations for everybody else. It was like a miracle, and it won't happen again, or maybe it will won't happen again a lot. The best and the only way to get alive who is alive back is only by a deal. A deal with very hard and very tough prices for who want to call it prices. But this is the only way that they will come back to us. And we must understand it. There is no other way, and everybody that say that I'm honored by the IDF, but it's not a way that all the other hostages can bring back, and we must remember it.
And if you could talk to Ofer today, and who knows, maybe he'll hear this, I mean, what would you say to him? What do you want to say to him?
Ofer, I hope that you see our war, our efforts to bring you back to your children, to your loved ones. We are doing everything, and we won't stop until we will get you back. You just need to survive. You just need to fight, and we will do the rest. We won't give up, and we are demanding from the Prime Minister and all the people that make decisions to seal the deal, the Netanyahu deal, and as soon as possible, because we saw yesterday, there are alive people there, and we must get in back. They must get released. They are alive, and they must get back to Israel for the future of this country.
All right, Eyal Calderon, thank you so much for joining us today, and we truly hope to see Ofer and the rest of the hostages back home soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I would like to introduce our first interview on this subject. Please welcome expert negotiator Moti Cristal. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lidal.
So I want to take a moment first to really acknowledge the remarkable operation to rescue the 4 hostages. But Mati, there was a ceasefire hostage deal on the table, and now Hamas is mad. What could be the impact of this rescue operation on that potential deal?
Well, I would be more cautious than calling it mad. Hamas decision-making processes are very rational, based on their rationale, on what they believe, Hamas, and in particular Sinwar, what will make or what will benefit their interests. And their interests there's a list of interests that they would like to achieve in any deal or in any future negotiations. They would like to restore control over the Gaza. They would like to secure the safety of the leadership. They would like to have a role in determining how Gaza will look like in the future. They would like to take over the PLO. They would like to strengthen their position in the Arab world. Actually, the last two interests are already fulfilled almost to the full. So the prisoners exchange or any hostage exchange is yet another instrument to pursue their interest. So judging what happened yesterday in terms of being happy or being mad, it was, it was a mistake on their behalf. They will, resume some operational lessons learned if they maintain any operational capacities. They will move some of the hostages probably to the underground, to the tunnels, but that will not have a tremendous strategic influence on any deal itself.
But if Israel were to sign a deal, a ceasefire deal, can it trust that Hamas will actually return the hostages? I mean, can we trust a deal that we negotiate with Hamas?
I believe that's a great question. We never trust terrorists. We never trust criminals. Sometimes in hostile divorce negotiations, we don't trust our spouse. However, we manage to reach an agreement with people whom we don't trust. Why? Because it's based on a very careful understanding of the mutual interest and the mutual benefit. So if you ask how we can make sure, how we can guarantee that anything that is agreed will be actually executed, that's a different question. In answering this question, we have international mechanisms of guarantees. Qataris, Egyptian usually are good guarantors for any deal which will be reached. But we usually, in this particular circumstances, we usually don't trust the people with whom we negotiate.
But Motzi, how do we even get to a deal? I mean, it's taken very long from November until now even to get a deal on the table that both parties are considering. Why is it taking so long? And do we believe that at some point we actually will achieve some kind of deal?
Well, when you negotiate this type of deals, there are two elements. First, identify what we call the negotiation language, the zone of possible agreement, identifying the deal itself. And yet, this is an important but not the only element which required to a successful execution. The second element is what we call political ripeness. At the moment, what we lack actually is the political willingness. As we get the reports, mainly on the Israeli side, but also Sinwar always tries to see how we can benefit more from the deal which is on the table.
All right, Moti Cristal, thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you very much, Linda.
NBC is reporting that the White House is considering negotiating directly with Hamas to free 5 American hostages in Gaza if the ongoing ceasefire talks with Israel did not succeed. Meanwhile, the Israeli general in charge of the Gaza Strip area has resigned over his role in the failures that led to the October 7th massacre. Meanwhile, the IDF is continuing its operations throughout the Gaza Strip, eliminating Hamas terrorists and terror tunnels. All the details are in the following report.
Intense fighting continued throughout the Gaza Strip today on day 248 of the war. The IDF announced that its forces struck Hamas terror infrastructure in the central Gaza Strip, including underground infrastructures, and targeted numerous Hamas terrorists. The army said it is continuing to uncover and destroy shafts leading to Hamas terror tunnels. Female fighters from Unit 414 identified 2 armed men trying to enter an underground tunnel. Shortly after the identification, Air Force strikes eliminated the terrorists. Meanwhile, Hamas released more propaganda footage Sunday, showing terrorists targeting Israeli tanks and soldiers in Rafah. The footage, shot from the terrorists' point of view, shows Hamas firing rockets at Israeli forces. And on Sunday, the Israeli general in charge of the Gaza Strip area, Brigadier General Avi Rosenfeld, announced his resignation over his role in the failures that led to the October 7th massacre. In a letter penned to his superiors in the IDF, he said that he failed in his life's mission to protect the Gaza border communities. This marks the second high-profile resignation of an IDF officer to resign over October 7th. The first was the chief of military intelligence. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is due back in the region today, visiting Egypt and then Israel, where he will meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant in an attempt to secure a hostage and ceasefire deal. And U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in an interview with ABC News that the U.S. is continuing to urge Israel to operate differently to avoid the loss of life of Palestinian civilians in Gaza, though stressed the war is ongoing because of Hamas.
We are concerned about every loss of life, including in this operation. Anytime civilians are killed, we're concerned. Of course we are. That's why we want this war to end. The only way to get all of the hostages out and to end any more civilian casualties in Gaza is to get to a comprehensive ceasefire and hostage agreement. So the two are not distinct issues. They're connected issues. How do we end the death of civilians in Gaza, Martha? There is only one way. It is to get to a comprehensive ceasefire and hostage deal. That's what President Biden laid out. And that is, again, what he is reinforcing today, because Hamas accepting that deal would bring an end to the tragedy in Gaza.
As such, the United States resumed its humanitarian aid drops into northern Gaza. The U.S. military said a cargo plane on Sunday dropped more than 10 metric tons of rations. According to U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, to date, the U.S. has airdropped more than 1,050 metric tons of humanitarian assistance, in addition to the aid delivered via the man-made pier built by the U.S., which has now resumed operations after detaching from the coast.
In a move that many anticipated, Israeli Minister Benny Gantz announced his resignation from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's emergency government on Sunday. Despite the ruling coalition maintaining a 64-seat majority, Gantz's exit removes the only centrist voice from Netanyahu's far-right coalition. ILTV's editor-in-chief, Maayan Hoffman, has more details.
Israeli Minister Benny Gantz resigned from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's emergency government in a significant political shift. The announcement came Sunday evening, marking the exit of the only centrist voice from Netanyahu's far-right coalition and amid a prolonged conflict in Gaza. Netanyahu responded with a brief statement urging Gantz not to, quote, abandon the front, but reassured the coalition's parliamentary majority of 64 out of 120 Knesset seats remained secure. During his exit speech, Gantz accused Netanyahu of hindering progress toward true victory in the ongoing war.
לצערי, נתניהו מונע מאיתנו להתקדם לניצחון האמיתי שהוא ההצדקה למחיר הכואב והמתמשך. לכן, אנחנו עוזבים היום את ממשלת החירום. בלב כבד, אך בלב שלם.
Gantz called for elections to be held in the fall, urging Netanyahu to set an agreed-upon date for them to occur. Gantz had presented Netanyahu with a June 8 deadline to outline a clear post-war strategy for Gaza, where Israel has been conducting its military offensive against Hamas for the past 8 months. Netanyahu dismissed this request shortly after it was issued. On Sunday, Gantz criticized Netanyahu's cabinet for allowing politics to cloud strategic decisions, stating that quitting while hostages were still in Gaza and soldiers were fighting was an excruciating decision. Some 116 of the 252 people kidnapped by Hamas remain in captivity. Gantz and his number 2, former IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Gadi Eisenkot, were both members of the war cabinet. Gantz was initially expected to announce his resignation on Saturday, but delayed it following the dramatic rescue of 4 hostages by Israeli forces. His exit now leaves Netanyahu's government much more reliant on hardliners. Gantz's move could be a pivotal moment in Israeli politics, further shifting the balance of power within Netanyahu's coalition. What will be the final impact? Only time will tell.
Tensions escalated in northern Israel overnight with rocket sirens sounding in more than one coastal city. The IDF intercepted a suspicious aerial target from Lebanon, with minor injuries reported as residents rushed to safety. All the details are in the following report by Maayan Hoffman.
Tensions continued in the north of the country overnight, with incoming rocket sirens rocking the northern coastal city of Accra and the surrounding area, as well as Kiryat Bialik. Video shared on social media showed an IDF interceptor missile being launched over Accra, which the IDF confirmed was targeted at a suspicious aerial target that entered Israeli airspace from Lebanon. Magen David Adom ambulance service said that a woman was slightly injured while rushing to her bomb shelter. No one was hit by the rocket or shrapnel. Earlier Sunday night, Hezbollah launched anti-aircraft missiles at Israeli fighter jets over southern Lebanon, according to the IDF. The IDF reported that the aircraft were not in any serious danger from the attack. Notably, however, this is the first instance of anti-aircraft missiles being used against Israeli jets in Lebanon since the war began 8 months ago. Shortly after the missiles were fired, an IDF drone targeted and killed the cell near the coastal city of Tyre. Additionally, the IDF struck several buildings used by Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The IDF emphasized that it continues to prepare its soldiers to defend against northern threats.
And the Houthis have once again attacked ships traveling in the Red Sea, claiming their acts are in defense of the Palestinians in Gaza. More on this from ILTV's Maayan Hoffman.
Yemen's Houthi group claimed they fired ballistic missiles at the British destroyer HMS Diamond in the Red Sea, asserting that the strike was, quote, accurate, but without confirming any damage. They also reported attacking 2 commercial vessels, the Norderney and the Tavishi, resulting in a fire on the Norderney. However, Britain's defense ministry refuted these claims. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, confirmed that the Houthis damaged 2 commercial vessels in the Gulf of Aden, the Tavishi, a Liberian-flagged Swiss-owned ship, and the Norderney, a German-owned ship, both sustained damage, but no crew members were injured. And the Norderney continued its voyage, CENTCOM said. The Houthis, who control significant parts of Yemen, have been targeting ships since November to show solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza, disrupting global shipping and increasing fears of the Israel-Hamas conflict spreading. The United States and Britain have conducted strikes against Houthi targets in response.
And now, in yet another show of Israeli resilience, at a Coldplay concert in Athens yesterday, chants of solidarity with the hostages erupted as Israelis among the crowd chanted, "Bring them home." More from ILTV's Ariella Lachiani.
At a Coldplay concert in Athens on Sunday, a poignant moment unfolded as groups of Israelis began chanting "Bring them home" in a powerful gesture of support for the 116 hostages still held by Hamas. This emotional outcry resonated through the crowd just after the British band finished playing Yellow, a song that has come to symbolize solidarity with the hostages. Athens has become a favored vacation spot for Israelis, particularly now as many avoid Turkey due to its support for Hamas following the terror group's brutal attack on October 7th. The chant at the concert was a stark reminder of the ongoing crisis and the resilience of those affected. This act of unity at the Coldplay concert followed a day after social media erupted with videos of large crowds of Israelis in Athens celebrating the rescue of 4 hostages. Noah Argamani, Shlomi Ziv, Almog Meirjan, and Andrei Kostov were successfully brought back to Israel in an operation on Saturday, sparking joy and relief across Israel and among its diaspora.
For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at iltv.tv or download the ILTV Plus app. That's it for ILTV's weekly review. Stay safe and see you next week.